GeekNet every fourth Monday at 7 p.m. W5FC. ARRLNTS net nightly at 6:30 p.m. W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 19th Skynet? This is KF5PDS. My name is Billy, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break in your line. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to w.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, Was Up, space exploration and space history, Constellation of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and our 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to my alternate net control, Tom, KE5ICX, if you'll do the check-in from KF5PDS.
And thank you, Billy. This is KE5ICX, and my name is Tom. I'm your alternate net controlled station this evening. We'll go ahead and get started with low-power short-time check-ins. If you are one of those, please come with your call sign phonetically, name, where you're transmitting from. Let me know if you're low-power short-time.
Kilo India 5, Uniform Alpha Uniform, David on an HT in Mesquite.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far northeast Dallas, low power.
Kilo, Golf 5, Uniform, Foxtrot, Romeo, Jacob, Dallas, low power.
Okay, we picked up three. I got KI5UAU, that's David, over in Mesquite on HT, W5GUS, Gus, low power, 5 hour northeast Dallas, KG5UFR, Jacob, low power, also in Dallas. Anyone else, low power, short time? Okie doke, I'll ask stations checked in. Do you have anything you wish to bring to the net now before you disappear into the ether? Please come with your call.
Whiskey 5, Bacon Lettuce Tomato, W5BLT, low power.
Okay, I got Bill, W5BLT. Anyone else?
Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James, Carrollton, short time.
Okay, picked up James, KG5, WVL. He's short time, and there was another station. Try again.
This is Whiskey 1, Fox Lima Romeo, broadcasting from Wiley.
Okay, picked up W1FLR. Anyone else low power short time? And does anybody have anything they want to bring to the net now before we go to general check-in? Okay, we'll now take general check-ins. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving. November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony in Dallas.
Whiskey Foxtrot 5, Foxtrot Romeo Delta, Dennis in Flower Mound.
This is Kilo India 5 Zulu Oscar Echo, Tommy from Balch Springs.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Kilo India 5, Gulf Romeo Hotel, Melissa, Surf City, Dallas.
Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert Richardson.
Dallas.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz. My heart is in Ohio and Arlington at the same time. Go Rangers, go.
November Victor 5, Fox, Virginia in Fort Worth.
Okay, we got a pause. I'll go ahead and check everybody in. I got N5VB, Bill in Irving, NT5TM, Tony in Dallas, WF5FRD, that's Dennis in Flower Mound, KF5ZOE, that's Tony in Bald Springs, KF5ZVL, Mr. Bill, Farmers Branch, KI5GRH, Melissa, somewhere in Surf City, Dallas, AA5AN, that's Robert and Richardson. Let's see here. WB50ZL, Brenda in Dallas, KF5JHA, Chaz in Mesquite, and NV5F, Virginia in Fort Worth. Additional check-ins, please come out.
This is Kilo Juliet 5, Bravo India Sierra, Mark in Old East Dallas.
Okay, I picked up, I believe I got this one, Kilo Juliet 5, Delta India Sierra Mark over northeast Dallas. Mark, did I mangle your call?
Yes, you did. It's Kilo Juliet 5, Bravo India Sierra in East Dallas. This is Mark.
Very good. I got you. Kilo Juliet 5, Bravo India Sierra Mark, northeast Dallas. Thank you. Got you checked in. I'm going to move over to Echolink. I see a few folks right there who have not checked in. We have an opportunity to do so. Please come now. Echolink only. I'll give you extra time.
Golf 5, Zulu Mike Golf, Joe.
This is Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray, Kelly, in point.
Control Whiskey 0 Mike Bravo Charlie. That's Whiskey 0 Mike Bravo Charlie, Shane Blue Springs, Missouri.
All right, let me go ahead and get those folks checked in. I got KG5ZMG, that's Joe in Arlington, K5KTX, Miss Kelly over in Point, and W0NBC, Shane, somewhere in Missouri. Thank you. Say hello to Bethany for us, would you please? I will now open it up to anywhere, any place. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and your location.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot India, WB4MFI, Ted Dallas Low Power.
Okay, Delta 5, Baker, Papa, X-Ray, Bobby, Wills Point.
Okay, we picked up 2 more. I've got WB4MFI, Ted over in Dallas, low power. I've got WD5, Bravo, Papa X-Ray, that's Bobby over in Wills Point. Anyone else? Okay, let me send this back to Billy. Miss Billy, we have 24 check-ins so far. Back to you from KE5ICX.
See that? Thank you, Tom, and welcome to all who have checked in to Skynet. All right, let's get started with general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If you have an announcement for this evening's net, please come. Fine.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
At 5 p.m. Tony, good evening. What announcements do you have for us this evening?
evening, Billy. It's always a great pleasure to bring announcements to Skynet, and tonight we have an Afterglow movie to talk about. At 10:30, plus or minus about 5 minutes, we'll be discussing The Man Who Turned to Stone from 1957, a black and white horror movie combining the twin fads of juvenile delinquents and some sort of vampires preying upon the young and innocent. Totally okay for Halloween weekend. Also, of course, this is a fifth Sunday, so there's no meeting on the air or Racy's training net, but we do have a fifth Monday coming up, and we're going to try to have some kind of a surprise net. What'll it be? I have no idea. That's why it's a surprise. But tune in on this repeater at 7 p.m. on Monday. Be ready to participate, or be scared, or do something. At least you'll be surprised. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. Is there anyone else that has any announcements for this evening's net? If so, please come now with your call sign.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo.
DB Bill. Good evening, Bill. What announcements do you have for us?
The Microsoft has announced that they are making some changes to Excel. Excel spreadsheet program has had an annoying automatic correction feature, which is on by default. And what it does is it causes things that are entered in a lot of engineering and scientific areas as text to be converted into other things. For instance, SEP5 is converted to September the 5th, even if you had something you wanted to be SEP5. Now there is a kind of a pop-up warning thing, or some kind of warning thing that appears, and they made it easier to get to the place to turn off the automatic feature. So that's in, I think, the currently released or upcoming released versions of Excel, both for a PC and for a Mac. That's all I got in 5BB.
Thanks, Bill. Always appreciate those kind of updates. Are there anyone else that have any announcements for this evening's net? So please come now with your call sign. Hearing no more announcements, I'll go ahead with the announcements. The AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 2 nets available to Dallas on Tuesday evenings at 8 Central Time. You will need Echolink installed and you registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website at www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. The Dallas AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.880 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9. Tom N5HYP is the net control. All are welcome to check in. First Tuesday of the month is the DARC Club Night, so there's no AMSAT East on that night. Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.140 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. The DARC hosts several Monday night nets. The first Monday is Ham Fixin's Net. On this net, you can share recipes, pick up new recipes, ask questions, or share anecdotes about food. The second Monday is MCOM 101, Emergency Communications. The third Monday of the month, come back for a second helping of Ham Fixin's Net. And the fourth Monday is GeekNet. And as Tony mentioned, whenever we have a fifth Monday, it's a surprise net. If we told you what it is, it wouldn't be a surprise. On-air participation is encouraged. Tuesdays, AMSAT East at 8 p.m., question and answers, info and news for amateur satellites. Fridays is Search City simulation at 8 p.m. Learn about emergency radio communications via CERT-trained amateur radio operators. Melissa, KI5GRH, is usually the net control. Visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday. Search City, all are welcome. And Saturdays is the Night of Nets with TechNet from 7 to 8 p.m. and, of course, at 9 p.m., Skynet. And following Skynet is the Afterglow Movie Net. More on that in just a moment. The first and third Sundays is the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air. And daily is the ARRL Net National Traffic System Training Net every night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. All are welcome to check in any or all of these nets. And as I mentioned, following Skynet on Saturday nights at 10:30 is the Afterglow Movie Net. We choose a movie to watch during the week, and we'll watch that movie and then come back the next Saturday night and discuss the movie that we watched during the week. We'll discuss anything from plot, characterization, to special effects, movie scores, and any other interesting information on the movie. And then at the end of the net is announced for the coming week. So at this time, we'll go over tonight's Afterglow info. So I'll turn the net over again to Tom, KE5ICX, if you will give us your award-winning and totally accurate representation and synopsis of the fine film that was watched this week. This is to Tom, KE5ICX from KF5PDS.
Well, thank you, Miss Billy, and it's always highly accurate. This is a short one this week, but here we go. The man who turned to stone, Dr. Murdoch, was a quack, and everyone knew it. He was a failed urologist and didn't know which end of a UCD to use. Instead, he found a job at a local young women's detention home. Yes, this was an unlikely real ad in a local newspaper, but then Murdoch wasn't particularly bright in many ways. So join us for the particularly short Man Who Turned to Stone tonight. As Tony mentioned earlier, this evening, all you have to do is turn it up, the speed up a little bit. You can watch it in probably an hour. It's that fast. Back to you, Miss Billy, KE5ICX.
That's Tom, and you can keep up with all the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org. This is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. So at this time, if there's anyone on frequency that will give us information about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, please come now with your call sign.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha.
JHA, Chaz, good evening. What information can you give us with the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas?
Thank you so much, Billy, but I've got to do something else first. Unfortunately, the Rangers are behind 1-4. Arizona's ahead. It's in the 8th inning. Also, the Ohio State University is ahead 17-10, 7 minutes, 37 seconds yet to go in the game. Okay, the last Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting was held last night, and the meeting was held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas and also held on Zoom. The featured speaker was Rishka Paranda, and she's the JTAS, Junior TAS, Vice President. She was talking about her NASA headquarters intern experience. That was really good. She was a very bright young lady. She's now a senior at Capel High School. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held on Friday, November the 17th at 7:30 p.m. at the University of Texas in Dallas, and will not be held on Zoom because the featured activity is going to be the TAS item auction. We have about 22 items that we've acquired over the years, and they need to be gone away, and they're going to be auctioned off. Now, Saturday night public observing sessions have continued, and Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights so that there would be an opportunity for live reports from the TASS public observing sessions. Now, tonight, the fourth Saturday of the month, the stargazing would have been held at Rockwell, but tonight's stargazing was canceled due to the clouds and the rain. You can check the TASS website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. And that's all I've got right now, Billy. It's all back to you. This is KF5JHA. Well, I guess I'm sports control.
And updates on the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas. All right, next up is National Space Society events and activities. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Bill, N5BB. The net is yours from KF5 PDS.
Thank you, Billy. Hold on one moment, please. Okay, thank you. This is N5BB. I happen to be the membership director of the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society and the member at large for the group. First, I'd like to put out a note about AMSAT. The Amateur Satellite Corporation Symposium and yearly meeting was held last weekend, Friday afternoon and all day Saturday, at a hotel in Irving. Several local hams participated, including N5BB, N5HYP, W80D, and KF5IDY. Jonathan Brandenburg, KF5IDY, who is also a member of the National Space Society, was the first presenter at this meeting, and he demonstrated a plasma arc thruster suitable for use in CubeSats. Another correction to your earlier comments, and Tom, if you're listening, you need to make a note, I think, to change the script. The AMSAT Wednesday evening net, I was notified by N5HYP, is moving from the Arlington 2-meter repeater to the Arlington 440 repeater, which I believe is 444.200 with a PL tone of 100. Please confirm that before posting, but it is moving to the Arlington 440 repeater. That's because of difficulties they've had with the Arlington 2-meter repeater. That information was accurate as of last weekend at the MSAT meeting. Okay, on to National Space Society events. The next National Space Society chapter meeting is going to be Sunday, November the 12th. Sunday afternoon, November the 12th. The meeting starts at 3:30 p.m. at Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving. The topic will be humans on the moon and Mars. The remote presenter will be Dr. Pascal Lee. Dr. Lee is very famous. He's the co-founder and chairman of the Mars Institute. He's a planetary scientist at the SETI Institute, and he's the principal investigator of the Houghton Mars Project at NASA Ames Research Center in Mountain View, California. Dr. Pascal Lee, again, directs that Houghton. He's a principal investigator of that Houghton Mars Project, which has a Mars analog, Mars and Moon analog facility up in Canada on a island which is actually a desert island in Canada. So he presented a lot at a very long set of presentations at the National Space Society big meeting in here in the DFW area back in in May. And so he'll be presenting again remotely at our November the 12th meeting. Our National Space Society chapter meetings are hybrid. You can attend in person or remotely. If you want to attend remotely via WebEx, you need to contact me. And you need to contact me if you have any other questions about National Space Society. You can contact me, N5BB that's November 5 Bravo Bravo, at N5BB at Byrom.net. That's N5BB at BYROM.net, or space at Byrom.net. Or you can use my QRZ email address also. The National Space Society North Texas chapter has a website at ntx.nss.org. That's NTX, like the abbreviation for North Texas, .nss.org. There's also an active Facebook page. Just look for National Space Society of North Texas. And there's also an X, that used to be Twitter, active page. Just look for National Space Society of North Texas. Thank you very much. N5BB, clear.
Let's go. All right, next up is the discussion topic of the evening. So for tonight, I want to bring to your attention an article that was published on NASA.gov on October 26th of this year by engineer Swati Patel. The headline is NASA Tech Breathes Life into Potentially Game-Changing Design. 30 years ago, a young engineer named Christopher Walker was home in the evening making chocolate pudding when he turned out to be a very serendipitous call from his mother. Taking the call, he shut off the stove and stretched plastic wrap over the pot to keep the pudding fresh. By the time he returned, the cooling air in the pot had drawn the wrap into a concave shape, and in that warped plastic, he saw something. The magnified reflection of an overhead light bulb that gave him an idea that could revolutionize space-based sensing and communications. That idea became the Large Balloon Reflector, or LBR, an inflatable device that creates wide collection apertures that weigh a fraction of today's deployable antennas. Now, with an assist from NASA's Innovative Advanced Concepts NIAC program, funded by the agency's Space Technology Mission Directorate, which supports visionary innovations from diverse sources, Walker's decades-old vision is coming to fruition. It turns part of the inside surface of an inflated sphere into a parabolic antenna. A section comprising a third of the balloon's interior surface is illuminized, giving it reflective properties. With NIAC funding, a grant from the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory, Walker was able to develop and demonstrate technologies for a 33-foot diameter LBR that was carried to the stratosphere by a giant balloon. For comparison, the aperture of NASA's massive James Webb Space Telescope is over 21 feet in diameter. Parabolic antennas use their concave shape to capture and concentrate electromagnetic radiation. The larger the antenna's diameter or aperture, it is for capturing light or radio waves and transmitting radio signals over great distances. In astronomy, there is a tremendous advantage to placing telescopes above the Earth's atmosphere, which tends to distort or degrade signals coming from space. The challenge is that traditional large reflector antennas are heavy, unwieldy, and difficult to stow, leading to launch constraints and risky in-space deployment schemes. The LBR design solves both problems. Made of a thin film structure, it inflates like a beach ball, providing a stable parabolic dish shape without the need for bulky and complex deployable hardware, and can fold into a tiny volume. In 2018, Freefall Aerospace, a company co-founded by Walker to develop and market the technology, demonstrated the LBR's potential aboard NASA's stadium-sized stratospheric balloon, which carried a 3.28-foot scale model to an altitude of 159,000 feet. Step for the technology is a high-speed communications demonstration in low Earth orbit aboard a 6-unit CubeSat about the size of a shoebox called CapSat. It was selected for flight in 2019 as part of NASA's CubeSat launch initiative. It is a joint effort involving NASA, Freefall Aerospace, and the University of Arizona and Rincon Research Corporation in Tucson, Arizona. After reaching low Earth orbit, CapSat's inflatable antenna deployment system will deploy from its container, transmitting back high-definition Earth photos. The mission is slated for launch with several other CubeSats on Firefly Aerospace's Alpha rocket as part of the educational launch of Nanosatellite's 43 mission. A more ambitious lunar mission concept is also being explored. NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, would use the inflatable antenna in tandem with a new instrument called terahertz spectrometer for in situ resource utilization, a miniature high-power laser precisely calibrated to detect water, a critical exploration resource. It might be difficult to believe that this all started because a young engineer's idea of dinner one evening was what most people would consider dessert. Then again, one could say the proof was in the pudding. So there's the article on nasa.gov. NASA Tech breathes life into potentially game-changing antenna design. You can find that on the nasa.gov website, and there's other cool information. There's also a video on that site that is a video showing CapSat. nasa.gov, and hope you enjoyed that information. This is KF5's PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. This time, I'd like to turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX. If you'll do a quick check-in round, see if there's anyone who's joined us that would like to check in, and then you have my permission to turn the net over to Taz for Was Up. So this is KE5ICX from KF5's TDS.
And this is KE5ICX. I'll go ahead and take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Okay, we picked up one more. I got KG5BZW, J near Weatherford. I have you checked in. Chaz, KF5JHA, you're up from KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Billy. Unfortunately, I'm up, but the Texas Rangers are not. The revised score is Arizona 7, Rangers 1. The bottom of the 8th inning. Oh, well. Oh, but the Ohio State University has had 24-10 with 3 minutes, 46 seconds left. They're playing Wisconsin. Oh, okay. This is Chaz, KF5JHA, and we call this segment of Skynet Was Up because it's all about what's going on astronomically over the next couple of weeks. Tonight, on October the 28th, the moon is full, if you could see it through the clouds. On November the 5th, the moon's phase is the third quarter. On November the 6th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that's furthest from the Earth at a distance of 404,569 kilometers. On November the 13th, the moon phase is new. On November the 20th, the moon phase is first quarter. On November the 21st, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 369,818 kilometers. Slide master, slide number 3, please. Oh, I think I misnumbered my slides. Nope, I didn't. On October the 28th, the moon and Jupiter will be in conjunction in the eastern evening sky. Numbers M44 on the slide list, the early morning of October the 29th, the moon, and M45, which is also known as the Pleiades, and the planet Uranus are all in conjunction. You'll need at least a pair of binoculars in order to observe the planet Uranus. If you were in very dark skies and the moon wasn't close to it, you might get a glimpse of Uranus with just your two eyes, but since the moon is next to it, you really need a pair of binoculars at least. Slide Master, slide number 5. On November the 4th, the moon will be in conjunction with the star cluster M44, also known as the Beehive Cluster, in the early morning sky. And number 6 on the slide list, on November the 9th, Venus and the moon are in conjunction in the early morning eastern sky. Slide Master, slide number 7, please. On November the 11th and 12th, that night, the Orionid meteor shower peaks. This meteor shower can have half a dozen meters per hour just before dawn. You can get more information about meteors and meteor shower at the International Meteor Organization, IMO.net, or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. Slide Master, slide number 8. On November the 14th, the moon and Mercury are in conjunction in the western evening sky. And slide Master, slide number 9. On November the 17th and 18th, the Leonid meteor shower peaks. Now, this meteor shower can have maybe a couple of dozen meters to over 400 meteors per hour just before dawn. It's not predicted for another 10 years or so to have a meteor storm of sorts, so it'll be about 10 years before that happens. So a couple of dozen meteors is probably what you can see. Once again, you get more information from the International Meteor Organization, IMO.net, or the American Meteor Society, amsmeteors.org. Slide Master, slide number 10. On November the 20th, the moon and Saturn are in conjunction in the southern evening sky. And on November the 20th and 21st, the Alpha Monoceroids meteor shower. This meteor shower can have between half a dozen to sometimes over 400 meters per hour. Now, what is it going to have this year? We won't know until after it happens, but probably more than likely the half a dozen rather than the 400. Slide Master, slide number 12. On November the 21st, the moon and Neptune are in conjunction in the evening sky. Now, you really need a telescope to see the planet Neptune, and it probably won't even look like a planet, even at high magnifications. It'll look like a lightly blue-colored dot, probably. Slide Master, slide number 13. Now, remember that we have another solar eclipse coming up in about 6 months. A solar eclipse is when the moon is in between the Earth and the Sun, and for a few lucky people on the Earth, the moon blocks out some or all of the Earth from our field of view. Slide number 14. On April the 8th, 2024, that is the total solar eclipse that we can see from right here in North Texas. From the Brookhaven campus of the Dallas College, the sun will be completely blacked out for 3 minutes and 20 seconds between 1:41 and 1:44 p.m. During that time, called totality, you'll be able to see stars in the sky just as if it were like evening twilight. It won't get completely dark, but it'll be sort of like twilight. Now, the next total solar eclipse visible from North Texas after that will be July the 9th in the year 2317. And I believe the last one was in 1878. So this total solar eclipse is a very big deal since it only happens about once every 300 years in North Texas. From my understanding, all of the downtown hotels are booked solid that weekend already. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 15, please. Once again, the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held on Friday, November the 17th. Meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in the University of Texas at Dallas in person, and will not be held on Zoom because all we're doing is an auction of items that TASS has accumulated over the years and has no further need of, and we're not sure how to conduct the auction online. So unless there's something that happens it'll only be in person. And Saturday night public observing sessions continue, but tonight's was canceled due to the clouds and the rain. Check the TASS website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. Now, slide number 16. Do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill or have any more information? Maybe you just have a general astronomy question. Come now with your call sign if you need a fill or have a question. Well, hearing nothing, so as the moon will wane at the beginning of November, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live. And until next time, actually I'll be doing another segment of Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up, still down 1 to 7. And the Ohio State University is ahead. Okay.
Thank you, Chaz, and we'll catch you in the next segment. So stay tuned for more from KF5JHA later on in the program. This is KF5 PDS for this session of the DARC Skynet. Next up is space exploration and space history. For this time, I will turn the net over to Brenda, WB5OZL. The net is yours from KF5 PDS.
Thank you, Billy. This is WB5OZL. In space exploration news, join NASA to celebrate worm design, influence with original designer. Media are invited to hear a discussion on the design and cultural significance of the worm logotype with NASA and its creator Richard Dane at 11:30 a.m. EST on Monday, November 6th at the agency's headquarters in Washington. The logotype, a simple red unique type style of the word NASA, replaced the agency's official logo, the meatball, for several decades beginning in the 1970s before it was retired. The worm has since been revived for limited use. The event will air on NASA television, the NASA app, YouTube, and the agency's website. First ever radio images of an annular solar eclipse showcase the sun's extended corona. Your social media feeds might have been filled over the past couple of weeks with photos of the recent Ring of Fire annular eclipse, which crossed the western United States on October 14th. But it wasn't just photographers who imaged the celestial event. Scientists from the New Jersey Institute of Technology's Center for Solar Terrestrial Research used the new Owens Valley Radio Observatory Long Wavelength Array, otherwise known as OVRO-LWA, in California to capture the first ever radio images of an annular solar eclipse. Using a set of 352 antennas measuring radio length of radio wavelengths between approximately 20 and 88 megahertz, the team captured images of the eclipse's ring, which lasted for nearly an hour in the radio spectrum. By contrast, the visible light experience solar enthusiasts admired lasted only a few minutes. That's because the radio sun is about twice as large as a visible solar disk. Next we have birthdays. Donald H. Peterson, October 22nd, 1933. He flew on STS-6. Susan Kilrain, October 24th, 1961. She was on missions STS-83 and STS-94. Rusty Swikert, October 25th, 1925, Apollo 9. Zena Cardman, October 26th, 1989. She has not flown on any flights. Stephen Robinson, October 26th, 1955. STS-85, 95, 114, and 130. Terry Hart, October 27th, 1946, STS-41-C. Stephen R. Nagel, October 27th, 1946, STS-51G, 61A, 37, and 55. And lastly, Michael A. Baker, October 27th, 1953, STS-43, 52, 68, and 81. So this week in history, on this date, October 28th, in 2009, Ares 1-X launched from Kennedy Space Center's Pad 39B. NASA Ares 1X mission managers watch as NASA's Ares 1X rocket launches from the Pad 39B at the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida, Wednesday, October 28, 2009. The flight test will provide NASA with an early opportunity to test and prove flight characteristics, hardware, facilities, and ground operations associated with the Ares 1. This would prove to be the only Ares launch. October 22nd, 1968 was the Apollo 7 splashdown. There was constant conflict for the duration of the Apollo 7 flight. The most contentious issue was about wearing helmets during the landing. Schirra repeatedly expressed the view that the re-entry should be conducted with their helmets off. He perceived a risk that their eardrums might burst due to the sinus pressure from their colds, and they wanted to be able to pinch their noses and blow to equalize the pressure as it increased during re-entry. This would have been impossible wearing the helmets. Over several days, Schirra refused advice from the ground that the helmets should be worn, stating that it was his prerogative as commander to decide this, though Slayton warned him that he would have to answer for it after the flight. Schirra stated in 1994, "In this case, I had a cold. I had enough discussion with the ground, and I didn't have much more time to talk about whether we would put the helmet on or off. I said, essentially, I'm on board, I'm commanding. No helmets were worn during the entry." Director of Flight Operations Christopher C. Kraft demanded an explanation for what he believed was Schirra's insubordination from the Capcom. Stafford Kraft later said, Schirra was exercising his commander's right to have the last word, and that was that. Apollo 7 splashed down without incident at 11:11:48 UTC on October 22nd, 1968, 200 nautical miles south-southwest of Bermuda and 7 nautical miles north of the recovery ship USS Essex. The mission's duration was 10 days, 20 hours, 9 minutes, and 3 seconds. It was the last flight for Schirra and the only flight for Isley and Cunningham. So, I wanted to do a little something for Halloween, and so I looked for some reports of ghost sightings on spacecraft. I've not been able to find any. So, maybe they do exist, I just haven't run across them yet. It's an article entitled The Most Terrifying Things in Space. So, the first one is an incoming megacomet. The appearance in our solar system in 2021 of the biggest ever comet is terrifying. At 85 miles across, with an icy nucleus 50 times bigger than the previous record holder and a mass 100,000 times greater than the average comets. Comet C/2014UN271 Bernardinelli Bernstein is so big it was initially classified as a minor planet. Thankfully, this monster snowball is predicted to get no closer than 1 billion miles to Earth. But are there others out there? Number 2, collision with Andromeda. It may be 2.5 million light years from Earth, but Andromeda, the largest galaxy in our local group, is on a terrifying trajectory. It's headed straight for and will one day collide with our Milky Way galaxy. Number 3, catastrophic solar flares. Earth is constantly bombarded by high-energy particles from the sun. Most of the time, the planet's magnetic field deflects these solar attacks. However, occasionally, magnetic contortions inside the star realign and cause a solar flare. A sudden flash of light that hurls incredible amounts of X-rays and energy in all directions that travels at the speed of light. The results can be blackouts in navigation and communications signals. Another scenario is a coronal mass ejection, or CME, a slow burner that sends magnetized particles into space. Next, rogue black holes in our galaxy. Black holes are obviously terrifying. These crushed remnants of a massive star that exploded as a supernova are so massive that nothing, not even light, can escape its grasp. Thankfully, it feels pretty safe to look at the first image of Sagittarius A star, the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way. After all, it's 26,000 light years away. Number 5, a supernova in the kill zone. Another terror from space is the potential for a catastrophic supernova. If a star dies in a massive explosion called a supernova, nothing within a specific kill zone will be anything within a specific kill zone will be wiped out by intense waves of radiation. Astronomers have calculated that the kill zone extends 40 or 50 light years from a supernova's blast, and no known stars within that proximity to Earth are likely to blow anytime soon. However, it's possible that high-energy X-rays and gamma rays from more distant supernovas could interact with Earth's atmosphere and damage the ozone layer, which would make it easier for dangerous ultraviolet radiation from the sun to get through. Number 6, 154,741 extra asteroids. Many large objects lurk in our solar system, and we know only about a fraction of them. It's possible that there's an unknown asteroid out there that could destroy life on Earth, just like the one that wiped out the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. Luckily, we're discovering more of our solar system's space rocks every day, thanks to ever-improving wide-field telescope surveys. Number 7, the moon's shadow. A total solar eclipse is a spellbinding celestial event. The totality can also be a little terrifying. By the time the moon covers 95% of the sun's disk, the sky gets darker, the temperature drops, a chilly wind blows over you, and every hair on your body stands up. Eerie gray twilight descends and shadows sharpen. If you're in an elevated location overlooking a vast landscape, you can also see the moon's shadow racing towards you until it swallows you and everything goes dark. There's an aching fear in your stomach. Maybe the sun will not return. A naked eye view of the sun's corona is a surprise for anyone standing in the moon's shadow. But that haunting feeling will stay with you until daylight returns a few minutes later, and maybe beyond. And I have had it an 8th item here. Terrifying things, and that would be Chaz's jokes. Back to that, WB50ZL.
Thanks, Brenda, and thanks for the Halloween extra. This is KF5 TDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So at this time, I will return to Chaz, KF5 JHA. The net is yours. KF5 TDS.
Well, thank you, Billy, and thank you, Brenda. I did a knock-knock joke at the task meeting last night. I don't think it'll work as well here, but I'm going to try it anyway. And knock-knock are not in the World Series. Yeah, but we're behind now 9-1. The Arizona folks are ahead of the Texas folks at the bottom of the ninth inning. Okay, I'm sorry. This is Chaz, KF5JHA, and this is Skynet, and Slide Master, slide number 18. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC50ZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in North Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky seen over North Texas in a year. In her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Aquarius, the water bearer. How appropriate with all the floods we've had over the last 24 hours. The constellation Aquarius resides in the part of the sky that sometimes referred as the sea or the ocean, because the constellations here are all water-related. Aquarius is the water bearer. Quoting from Dave Hutchinson's article in the TASS newsletter, what is the interesting thing about this constellation is how many cultures have related it to water. The Greeks named it Aquarius after Ganymede, who was the cupbearer to the gods of the Mount Olympus. The Egyptians associated with this part of the sky, the god Kuman, who was the god of water. He would dip his cup in the Nile and cause it to overflow. In fact, the Egyptian hieroglyph for water the same used by astrologers for Aquarius. Okay, Brenda, hold on. Here's the scary thing, the jokes of the week. Slide number 19, please. My friend can't afford to pay his water bill anymore, so I sent him a card saying, "Get well soon." Come on, that was funny. Why did the fish cross the sea? To get to the other tide. A police officer arrested a bottle of water because it was wanted for 3 different states. It was wanted in 3 states of solid, liquid, and gas. What weighs more, a gallon of water or a gallon of butane? Well, the gallon of water, of course, weighs more because butane is a lighter fluid. Why do sharks only swim in salt water? Because pepper water makes them sneeze. And the last one in the series of the jokes of the week. A man walked past 3 sources of water, and he said, well. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Nope, this is not the ending of my segment. It's just beginning of the segment. Slide Master, slide number 20, please. The Aquarii consist of 2-type F2 supergiant stars of nearly equal brightness. So in a telescope, they look like identical or nearly identical stars in the binary pair. Although its duplicitous nature has been known since about 1777, Theta was first recognized as a true binary star by William Herschel in 1804, based upon observations he made of it starting in 1779. Burnham's Celestial Handbook lists Zeta as about 75 light years in distance. It also cites research by Kay Strand that shows a third unseen component in the system, which appears to be orbiting the B component and believed to be a red dwarf star. Slide master, slide number 21. M2 is a globular cluster. It's an easy object for binoculars and small telescopes and looks like a little ball of glowing mist in a 2-inch telescope, according to Robert Burnham Jr. The late task member Rick Roche called M2 a fine object in an almost void region of the sky. Rick noted that the Constellation of the Month articles and the task spectrums from 1991 till 2005, he was the person who did those things. And some of the stuff that I use is based upon what he wrote about. So M2 is an easy to see once you found it. Even James Amir notes that it'll be somewhat hard to find without setting circles or a go-to scope because it lies in a sparse region of the sky and with no easy guide stars. Amir also notes that M2 is interesting to watch over a 2-week period of time because it contains a prominent variable star which alters the cluster's appearance. The star varies from 12.5 magnitude to 14 in about 11 days. The star is located on the eastern edge of the cluster, just slightly north of center. And slide master, slide number 22, please. Oh, the Rangers have lost 9-1 to the Diamondbacks. Oh, well. At least we're tied. 1 game apiece. M73. Oh, this is slide number 22. M73 is a small grouping of 4 stars not far from M72. It is merely a telescopic asterism and is not truly an open cluster or multiple star system. This was proven by research conducted in 2000 and 2001 using spectral type data that radial velocity measurements as well as proper motion data from the Tycho 2 catalog. All of this is noted in detail in the Annals of the Deep Sky by Jeff Knipe and Dennis Webb. And M73 is simply 4 stars together forming a Y-shaped group. Messier believed them to be surrounded by nebulosity, but it's been proven that this is an illusion, as many small groups or 2 or more stars look fuzzy in a small telescope. Regarding M73, Rick Roche wrote, the possible exception of M4, which is only a double star, this is probably the most disappointing Messier object in the list of 110. Slide master, slide number 23. NGC 7293 is the Helix Nebula. At 522 light years away, the Helix is widely regarded as the nearest planetary nebula to our solar system. Its angular size extends across a fairly large field of view compared to the most of the deep sky objects. This is particularly notable when you consider that half of many of the planetary nebulas appear quite small and even star-like under most magnifications. Imagine looking at the first quarter moon. The Helix Nebula would span the distance from the moon's limb to the Terminator. That's a pretty big planetary nebula. The Helix is visible in binoculars and lower-powered telescopes from dark skies. So far as is known, the Helix is the only planetary nebula where gaseous knots have been observed with comet-like tails, apparently blown off by the radiation and stellar wind from the nebula's central star. These features have long been known from ground-based observations, but observations from the Hubble Space Telescope increased their number from a few hundred to over 3,500. Wow. Slide master, slide number 24. NGC, which stands for New General Catalog, 7009 is the Saturn Nebula, which is very close to M72 and 73. Despite this, and the fact that it is a fairly large and bright planetary nebula, it was overlooked by Messier and instead was discovered by William Herschel in 1782. Lord Rosse named it the Saturn Nebula in 1850 from the ring-like extensions on either side which resemble that of the rings of the planet Saturn, when seen nearly edge-on. Unlike the helix, which requires dark skies to see well, Saturn Nebula is fairly bright and can be observed from inside this city, which earns it a place in the Urban Observing Club from the Astronomical League. It shows up well in an 8 to 10 inch scope or larger. Burnham's Celestial Handbook notes that the ring extensions may be glimpsed in a 10-inch telescope under dark skies. The Astronomical League Observing Program Guide, the Herschel Objects, describes the Saturn Nebula as having a blue tint, which shows some elongation, large and opaque, and an 8-inch Newtonian reflector at 96 power. Slide master, slide number 25. Now, Neptune is worth mentioning because it is currently found just on the edge of Aquarius at magnitude 7.8. Neptune is too dim to be seen in the unaided eye. It is visible in binoculars if you have the right binoculars, but it's much better in a telescope. If you know where to look, Sky and Telescope magazine publishes finder charts for Uranus and Neptune every year and have a decent planetarium software that also shows to you. I use Stellarium, and it's free, stellarium.org, I believe. And binoculars, Neptune simply looks like a star, and so far away it still looks like a stellar in most telescopes until you crank up the power somewhat. Even then, it is still small, looking like a tiny blue disk. I think I talked about that just earlier this evening. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 26. There are a few more Astronomical League Observing Program objects in the constellation of Aquarius, the water bearer. I've given you just a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 77 different observing programs, most of which have around 100 objects. So, if you observe just 10 objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen from an observing program in about a year from the Astronomical League. And slide master, slide number 27, and that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Aquarius, the water bearer. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for their research and words on the deep sky objects that I use, borrow, and steal for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now, next week we'll take a look at Cepheus, the king. You know, there's some sort of story about Cassiopeia, his daughter Andromeda, and flying a horse and a hero and a sea monster. Well, all that's tied together. Yeah, they're all part of a myth, and we'll talk about that next time. This is KF5, JJ, sending it back to our net control, 73, everyone. Go Rangers for the next game, which is going to be Monday night. Back to you, Brenda. Back to you, Billy, excuse me.
Thank you very much, Taz. This is KF5 PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, at this time, we're ready for space launches for the week. So at this time, I'll turn the net to Tom, KE5ICX. If you don't mind doing a quick check-in round, see if there's anybody on frequency that would like to in, and then you can go right into your report on space launches for the week. So this is to KE5ICX from KF5 PDS.
Thank you, Billy, and I'll do exactly that. Do we have any additional check-ins? Please come with your call sign, phonetically, please, your name and where you're transmitting from. Okay, hearing none, let me go ahead and tell you what we got going. We have space launches for this week, and a little beyond. October 29th, 30th, that will be tomorrow evening, from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Falcon 9 rocket will launch another batch of second-generation Starlink V2 mini internet satellites. Falcon 9 first stage will be recovered on the drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. Then we have November 5th, 6th overnight, SpaceX CRX number 29 CRS. This is from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy. Will launch a Dragon 2 spacecraft on a cargo resupply mission to the International Space Station. First stage will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. This is Flight 29 by SpaceX, conducted under the Commercial Resupply Services contract with NASA. Then we have in November, no date yet, this is the mPOWER 5 and 6. This will launch from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral. Falcon 9 rocket will launch a third pair of O3B mPOWER broadband internet satellites in medium Earth orbit for SES Luxembourg. Then we have, jumping all the way to December here. I don't know how this one got in here, but here it is. December 24th, SLC-41 from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. United Launch Alliance Falcon Centaur rocket will launch on its inaugural flight with the Peregrine commercial lunar lander for Astrobotic. The Peregrine robotic lander will carry multiple experiments, scientific instruments, and tech demo payloads for NASA and other customers. The mission will also launch 2 prototype satellites for Amazon's Kuiper broadband constellation. The Vulcan Centaur rocket will fly in the VC-2S configuration with 2 GEM 63XL solid-state boosters, short-length payload fairing, and 2 RL-10 rockets on the Centaur upper stage. Let's see, we have also World Legion 1 and 2 launch from SLC-4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch the first pair of WorldView Legion Earth observation satellites from Extra Technologies. They plan to deploy 6 commercial WorldView Legion high-resolution remote sensing satellites into a mix of sun-synchronous and mid-inclination orbits on 3 SpaceX Falcon 9 rockets. The first stage will return to Landing Zone 4 at Vandenberg Space Force Base for landing. Then we have a Falcon Heavy launching with USSF-52 from Launch Complex 39A. This Falcon Heavy will launch an unspecified military payload on the mission. That's all they'll tell us about it. No dates coming up in the future. Then we have Falcon 9 ASBM launch. This is from Vandenberg. It'll launch a Arctic satellite broadband mission. That's what the ASBM is, consisting of 2 satellites owned by Space Norway. Falcon 9 and 2 Northrop Grumman built satellites into a highly elliptical orbit that lingers over the Arctic region. Then satellites carry communication payloads for the Norway Ministry of Defense and the U.S. Space Force. Then we have 2 more Falcon 9 USSF launch. This will be SLC-40 Cape Canaveral. Falcon 9 again will launch a mission for the U.S. Space Force and Missile Defense Agency. No information on that one either. Then finally, I have going December, January, no date to determine, Avzon 3. This will be from Cape Canaveral. The Falcon 9 will launch a much-delayed small geostationary satellite for the Swedish broadband internet provider Avzon. It was originally scheduled for launch on the Ariane 5. The satellite was moved to the Falcon 9 due to delays in manufacturing. And that's it. That's all I got. Back to you, Miss Billy. This is KE5ICX.
Tom. All right, next up is recent astronomical discoveries. So I will return the net to Brenda. WB5OZ, net is yours from KPDS.
Thank you, Billy. This is WB5OZL, and this article is entitled Uranus Aurora Discovery Offers Clues to Habitable and Icy Worlds. Astronomers confirm the existence of an infrared aurora on Uranus. The presence of an infrared aurora on the cold outer planet of Uranus has been confirmed for the first time by University of Leicester astronomers. The discovery could shed light on the mysteries behind the magnetic fields of the planets of our solar system, and even on whether distant worlds might support life. A team of scientists, supported by the Science and Technology Facilities Council STFC, have obtained the first measurements of the infrared IR aurora at Uranus since investigations began in 1992. Since the ultraviolet UV aurorae of Uranus has been observed since 1986, no confirmation of the IR aurora had been observed until now. The scientists' conclusions have been published in the journal Nature Astronomy. The ice giants, Uranus and Neptune, are the unusual planets in our solar system, as their magnetic fields are misaligned with the axes in which they spin. While scientists have yet to find an explanation for this, clues may lie in Uranus's aurora. Aurorae are caused by highly energetic charged particles, which are funneled down and collide with a planet's atmosphere via the planet's magnetic field lines. On Earth, the most famous result of this process are the spectacles of the northern and southern lights. At planets such as Uranus, where the atmosphere is predominantly a mix of hydrogen and helium, this aurora will emit light outside of the visible spectrum and in wavelengths such as the infrared IR. The team used infrared auroral measurements taken by analyzing specific wavelengths of light emitted from the planet using the Keck 2 telescope. From this, they can analyze the light known as emission lines from these planets, similar to a barcode. In the infrared spectrum, the lines emitted by a charged particle known as H3 plus will vary in brightness depending on how hot or cold the particle is and how dense this layer of the atmosphere is. Hence, the lines act like a thermometer into the planet. Their observations revealed distinct increases in H3 plus density in Uranus's atmosphere with little change in temperature, consistent with ionization caused by the presence of an infrared aurora. Not only does this help us better understand the magnetic fields of the outer planets of our own solar system, but it may also help in identifying other planets that are suitable of supporting life. Lead author Emma Thomas, a PhD student at the University of Leicester School of Physics and Astronomy, said the temperature of all the gas giant planets, including Uranus, are hundreds of degrees Kelvin Celsius above what models predict if only warmed by the sun, leaving us with the big question of how these planets are so much hotter than expected. One theory suggests the energetic aurora is the cause of this, which generates and pushes heat from the aurora down towards the magnetic equator. The majority of exoplanets discovered so far fall in the sub-Neptune category, and hence are physically similar to Neptune and Uranus in size. This may also mean similar magnetic and atmospheric characteristics, too. By analyzing Uranus's aurora, which directly connects to both the planet's magnetic field and atmosphere, we can make predictions about the atmospheres and magnetic fields of these worlds and hence their suitability for life. This paper is a culmination of 30 years of auroral study at Uranus, which has finally revealed the infrared aurora and begun a new age of aurora investigations at the planet. Our results will go on to broaden our knowledge of ice giant auroras and strengthen our understanding of planetary magnetic fields in our solar system, at exoplanets, and even our own planet. The results may also give scientists an insight into a rare phenomenon on Earth in which the North and South Poles switch hemisphere locations, known as geomagnetic reversal. Emma adds, we don't have many studies of this phenomena and hence do not know what affects every day at Uranus due to the unique misalignment of the rotational and magnetic axes. Continued study of Uranus's aurora will provide data on what we can expect when Earth exhibits a future pole reversal and what that will mean for its magnetic field. Okay, this is from ScienceDaily.com. That's all I got. Back to net. WB5OZL.
Okay, Brenda. This is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, since we are winding down, I am going to just add a reminder about visible satellite passages that you can use the website www.heavens-above.com website to find out what's in orbit and where to look for flyovers. That is www.heavens-above.com. So for one last time, I will return the net to Tom, KE5ICX, if you want to give a quick ISS pass info, and then if you would do a final check-in, if we have anybody that would like to get in for the count before we close the net, if you could just confirm our count, and I will close the net. So this is to KE5ICX from KF5CDS.
All right, thank you, Billy. And as you have already seen, there aren't very many passes, so I'm just going to give you one for the International Space Station. There's one really good pass, November 6th, minus 3.8 magnitude at 6:14 a.m. It'll reach its highest point at 6:18 at 88 degrees, and it'll fall to the southeast at 6:21 at 10 degrees. Okay, well, this is our last call. I'll take any final check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come with your call sign, phonetically, your name and where you're transmitting from. Last call. Okay, well, crickets. Miss Billy, the final count is 25 check-ins. Back to you, KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. Copy that we had tonight on the air 25 check-ins, hands participating on the air. So thank you to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussions about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So until next Saturday night, this is KF5PDS, Billy, and I'll be closing the net at 22:28 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 7-3, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And remember, tonight's Afterglow movie net, which will be starting up at 10:30, The Man Who Turned to Stone from 1957. 73, everybody. Good night.
Normal state.
Good net as always. Billy, check me in if you wouldn't mind. I'm trying to get to a place where I can make the repeater. Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, mobile.
John, we got you down as number 26. Okay, this is KE5ICX. We're going to take about 5 minutes and come back, and we'll be discussing tonight's movie, The Man Who Turned to Stone. Could be the writer. So come back in about 5 minutes, and we'll start the net. This is KE5ICX.
John, we got you, so thanks for checking in. Sorry you had a hard time hitting the repeater, but we got you in the count, 26. Tom's got you. So thanks, Peg.
I'm completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow
movie net.
KF5 PDS, clear.
Yeah, not a great signal, but heard you both. Thanks all for checking me in. Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, mobile.
Okay, I'm going to call it 5 minutes. At this point, this is KE5ICX. You thought you'd get rid of me. I've been on all night long. Yeah, I know you could find somebody better. I hope you will. Let's see. This is the Afterglow Movie Net. This is when we talk about some wonderful movie that Brenda picked out. And tonight, she's picked a movie called The Man Who Turned to Stone from 1957, sometimes called The Petrified Man. Let me tell you what Wiki says about it. The Man Who Turned to Stone is a 1957 American black and white horror science fiction film. It is directed by Laszlo Kardos and starring Victor Jory, Anne Duran, and Charlotte Austin. The screenplay was written by Bernard Gordon under his pen name Richard T. Marcus. The Man Who Turned to Stone was released in '57 on a double bill with another Katzman-produced film, Zombies of the Mora Tau, the much more famous of the two movies. Plot goes something like this. Two social workers, Dr. Jess Rogers and Carol Adams, grow concerned over the number of deaths of young, or in this case, not so young women at the LaSalle Detention Home for Girls. The otherwise healthy inmates have been dying of heart failure or suicide, much like the people watching it. The social workers meet the manager of the detention home, Dr. Murdoch. Tracy, one of the inmates, discovers a hidden laboratory. The lab is the base for a group of unethical doctors who learned 100 years ago to extend their lives by draining the vitality of others. That's called your bank account, and they do that every time you visit. Without such transfusions, they begin to slowly petrify. They have become the medical staff of doctors at the home, assuring a steady supply of vital young bodies to feed upon. Rogers and Adams begin a quiet investigation, eventually exposing the doctors and their crimes and saving future victims. And this was written, of course, by Hollywood blacklisted screenwriter Bernard Gordon, who used the pseudonym Richard T. Marcus, which I mentioned earlier. Reception. The Encyclopedia of Science Fiction found the movie covered ground that even at the time of release were already passé. It stated the movie blends the juvenile delinquency genre with the horror sci-fi, which helps the movie, and that the acting was credible. Variety found the movie a lesser work in the horror genre, adequate to hold the lower half of a double feature. Good news is, it's very short. It's only about an hour and 15 minutes, something like that. So you can get through it fairly quickly. On a double feature, everybody wants to go home anyway, right? Who knows? I wasn't around in 1957, but I'm guessing that's probably what happened. Okay, this is what we do. We're going to go ahead and take check-ins, and then after check-ins, you'll have an opportunity. Oh, you need to tell me if you saw the film or not. Then we'll talk about the plot, how much you loved it. Then we'll talk about the cast and how much you loved them. And then finally, we'll talk about the music, production, the special effects, the not-so-special effects, anything you want to talk about on round 3. And that's the way we go. That's the way we roll. So we'll go ahead and start with check-ins. Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie, The Man Who Turned to Stone? By the way, it's not a requirement. You don't have to have seen the film. But we will ask you if you want to see the film if you haven't. So here we go. You know what to do. Please come now.
November, Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony, here in East Dallas by the lake. Ooh, lots of flooding. I did see the movie, though.
November, Golf 5, Yankee, Allen in North Garland, and yes, I saw the movie.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill and Irving, and yes, I saw this fine movie.
Kilo Golf 5 Bravo Zulu Whiskey, J. near Weber. I saw the film.
Okay, it seems promising. Let me see here. We got NT5TM, Tony in East Dallas. Yes, he saw the movie. NG5Y, welcome back, Alan. He's in, where did I write this down? I can't read my writing. At any rate, he said yes, he saw the movie. N5BB, that would be Bill over in Irving. Welcome back, Bill. Yes, he saw the movie. KG5BZWJ near Weatherford. Yes, he saw the film. Additional check-ins, please come now.
WV5OZL, this is Brenda in Dallas, and I did see this movie.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth. Unfortunately, yes, I did see this movie.
Okay, we picked up two more. I got WB5OZL, Miss Brenda. She did see the film and a yes. NV5F, Miss Virginia. Unfortunately, she says, she also saw the film. She's in Fort Worth. That's probably where she saw the film, too. I have her down as a yes. Anyone else before we begin?
Whiskey 5, Bacon, Lettuce, Tomato. Yes, I saw the movie. Bill in Garland. W5BLT.
Okay, we picked up another one. I got W5BLT, Bill in Garland. Yes, he saw the film. Well, wonderful. We got a quorum tonight. I'm sure we'll, of course, take additional check-ins for those who are late comers to our fine film. We're going to go ahead and start going right through the order. Tony is number one on the runway. Lucky Tony. Tony, tell us, what did you think about the plot to our fine film? What the hell is the name of it? The Man Who Turned to Stone from 1957. Go ahead, Tony, from KE5ICX.
Well, you know, of all the horrible movies, we've seen some bad movies that were heartwarming and good and had good characters or really good storytelling, and this wasn't those. But, you know, I actually found the plot to be a little bit more intelligent than it had to be. If you go all the way back to the London Bills of Mortality in the 1600s, and you combine that with your basic just common sense about how biology works, you think, okay, you've got a square mile, and it's got tons of grass. You know, in a square mile, you can probably fit a few cows. But wolves need a big range. So if you've got 24 cows in that square mile, maybe you've only got 2 wolves. Maybe the pack has a bigger range. This is only part of the range. Now, let's say your lifestyle is you eat wolves. It's going to be pretty obvious pretty quickly that something has made all the wolves go away. And I can remember thinking of this even with Interview with a Vampire. Yeah, one murder is rarely headline news, but 500 extra murders do tend to attract attention. Being a vampire is just a thermodynamically impossible lifestyle. That's why there are no vampires. And the fact that the inciting action of this plot is there are too many deaths here, this seems odd, just warmed my nerdy heart. Dial-statistical analysis is exactly the way that people like this would get caught. That part was bizarrely realistic. And of course, I'll talk more about the, quote, special effects and the alleged characters, but the cornerstone of this plot was actually reasonable. That you can't just, you know, feed on adult humans. It doesn't work. You will get caught, you'll attract a lot of attention, and even very ordinary people with no particular redeeming features will eventually go, huh, now that's odd. I like that the plot didn't rely on a lot of terrible superhuman skills. This wasn't a James Bond movie. it didn't require many bizarre coincidences or, deus ex machina. The ending was awfully pointless. The building's on fire. I think I'll do some paperwork. Oh, I'll join you. I've always wanted to do paperwork while I was 68. It was made very clear that they died just like normal people during most of their extended lifespan. So that made no sense and seemed completely pointless. But, at least the inciting action was smarter than usual in one of these lousy movies. So I'll never watch it again. Oh, I mean, I might if there's good company, a lot of popcorn. But I will never intentionally watch this again. But I did want to give it credit for that, hey, this is odd. That very ordinary inciting action that happens when there's excess mortality in a country where people can read and write after about 1600. NT5 TM.
Well, thank you, Tony, and this was most interesting hearing you have so many interesting and relatively positive things to say while dissing the film. You brought merit to a meritless film in a meritless sort of way. I appreciate that very much. Okay, next up is Alan, NG5Y. Alan, what did you think about the plot? And welcome back, by the way, from KE5ICX.
Well, I think you said Brenda picked this movie, and if that's the case, you need to have Brenda pick more movies. This one was actually watchable. It was not painful. It might have been a little silly, but that didn't really detract from it being entertaining. It was kind of weird to have all these just drab dresses, but I guess that's because it was from the 50s. I don't know. I actually rather enjoyed this one. Did not find it painful at all to watch, unlike some of the other turkeys that y'all have picked. And that's all I have to say for now. NG5Y back to us.
Okay, well, that was very short, Alan. Well, don't forget, you can Google the internet and find people's reviews and then steal from them, because there are other people that have watched this film and have, just allowed their life forces to be sucked out of them for the betterment of informing others of cinema tragedies. Okay, next up is Bill, N5BB. Bill is back as well. Bill, what did you think about our fine film for tonight from KE5ICX?
Oh my, Bill is back. This is N5BB. Yeah, I've just been so busy the last few weeks, I've been skipping Afterglow. But I decided, this is not that long a movie. I'll try watching it. And watch it I did. And as some of the people commented, this wasn't that bad. That bad is some of the real stinkers we've watched. It's not as bad as them. It's one of the common, I guess, 50s era, I don't know when this movie came out, I forgot, but movies with it's got a little bit of the flavor of the, like Dracula movies. It's got a little bit of the flavor of A Picture of Dorian Gray, if you remember that Oscar Wilde story, which was made into a movie. And I noticed that, reasonably early in the movie, something was made about the supposed Rembrandt painting, and so it did not age like The Picture of Dorian Gray, but I was wondering if that was just a little flashback to that other story, The Picture of Dorian Gray. Also, whatever his name was, the Eric, the one that was the tall one that didn't say anything. He kind of looked like, of course, the Frankenstein monster and everything. So I think they were trying to get us to kind of think about those other memes as they were. And of course, there was a machine, just like kind of like a Frankenstein machine with electricity and all kinds of things to transfer the energy. And there was a fire and smoke. Does that remind you of some other movies like Frankenstein movies? Or Frankenstein movies? Yes. Anyway, so actually I thought it was of this ilk. And I thought it was executed reasonably well. And I thought the premise was different enough, although it had, like I say, these shadows of other movies. It was different enough. It made it a little interesting. And they talked about animal magnetism, which was, yes, something that they were investigating back around that time. So all in all, it wasn't a good movie, but it wasn't a real stinker. That's all I got for now in 5BB.
Thank you, Bill. And it's nice to know that, it's like when I made my own wine out of Welch's grape juice. And I did the recipe, and one of the things that when somebody did the same thing and made their own wine out of Welch's grape juice, the answer was, the overall review was, it wasn't terrible. And I think this movie is the Welch's grapefruit wine version. It wasn't terrible. So, with that low bar, we move on to Jay, KG5BZW. Jay, what did you think about the plot? And what was your favorite part of the plot? What the heck? I'll ask you that question, too, from KE5ICX.
This is KG5BZW. The film definitely was not a stinker. But that's been said by pretty much everybody. I'm trying to figure out some unique something or another to say about this film. I did enjoy it. Will I watch it again? Probably not. But it could be also due to, a point of relevance of you watch a bunch of stinkers and then you come watch a film that's like not a stinker, like, oh, wow, this ain't terrible. So, I might be more judged if it hadn't been for the past couple of several stinkers. I don't know. I thought the plot was pretty tight. I liked the investigative aspect of how they did it. There were a few things that I don't know. I've already forgotten. They seemed a little off or minor. And you can complain about, okay, how does Boogie the Souls? Granted, to be honest, I'm not very good at chemistry, so I don't know how copper sulfate reacts in water and why sodium. They call it sodium sulfate. Is really, it looked like baking powder or something. And I do recall something about, but using baking powder for, sulfuric acid burns and stuff like that, but I mean, that's kind of like obvious. So I don't know what that you add more ions to a solution, it's not going to, make it less reactive or whatever, but I don't know. Why was it copper sulfate? I don't know. And really, let's face it, we're getting into the magic area here, which, you know, that's a thing where you just don't. It's fun to try to see what part is actually scientifically valid or not, but you know, it's still you're broaching something that's just basically magic. Oh gosh, there's enough about this film. I didn't take notes or anything. I was more surprised by the fact that it wasn't so bad. The ending had that one ending, that tiny loose end that I almost hated that they ended with the we have to prepare our notes in a burning building. What? You know, I can only forgive it because it was literally within like the last few minutes of the film, last like couple minutes probably, and like they were literally just trying to finish loose ends, and however way you're not supposed to really think about this stuff when you're watching this film. It's a B movie. Everybody who I assume was watching it at the time knew what they were getting into when they watched the film. But I wish I had actually taken notes because it'd be kind of nice to go over a few more bits. Since I have nothing, I'm going to hand it to the next person. KG5B today.
Okie dokie, thank you, Jay. Next up is Brenda, WB5OZL. Brenda, your thoughts on the man who turned to stone from KE5ICX.
This is WB5OZL. Plots. Pretty simple-minded, I'll have to say. They never did explain to us why he turned to stone, what was wrong with him, or how it is that draining whatever energy out of these girls, how it helped him. And why did it have to be young girls? Why did some of these old guys sacrifice themselves to give him some kind of life energy? I just have trouble believing that there were half a dozen grown people who are just fine with murdering young ladies for this old geezer so he can live. Like, let him die. I didn't understand what their motivation was. They didn't act friendly, and it didn't seem like he was a particularly wonderful person or smart or accomplished or anything. I can't see a good reason to just snuff out the lives of many young people just to feed him. But the other thing I had a problem with is these girls didn't seem like hardened criminals. They looked like they just stepped off the set of Grease with their little shirt-waist dresses and little black flats, and sweet and smiley, and not a hardened one among them. So that was a little unbelievable. The rest of the plot. Too many guns around with people that didn't know what to do with them. Lots of running around in the dark. I don't like that. I can't see, and I don't know what's happening to whom, and I can't figure it out. I understand they save their money on sets and such if they shoot in the dark, but to me it's just extremely annoying. the authorities, after maybe the third death, wouldn't they be kind of alarmed about that? Even one death would be kind of unusual, and you have many. Notice somebody would miss these girls. It's not like they're orphans. They have families and people that care about them, and you can't just make people disappear without making it believable. Okay, back to net, WB50ZL.
Well, it's sad that you feel so bad about people that they wouldn't like that doctor to live on forever. He seemed like such a nice fellow. Not a real conversationalist, but he was a very nice person, and he could kidnap people with the best of them. He's a very quiet, itinerant worker. I think he deserves kudos for that. Next up is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, what do you have to say about our plot to our fine film for this week from KE5 ICX?
Thank you, Tom. Well, I'll have to say that I'm glad I took a little snooze during Skynet, and I ate some ice cream, so that perked me up a little bit. That was my reward for watching the movie and staying up this late. Well, I kind of balance. I tend to balance myself, especially when you go later in the order. You can kind of think about what everybody else has said. Tony makes a fair point about the frequency of deaths, untimely and unexplained deaths. There's actually a really what I thought was a pretty cool two-part episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, where of course it's got time travel in it, but it's kind of a dimensional time travel, so it's at least a little more interesting per your article that you wrote. That I actually thought of the subject of that article when I was watching that episode of Strange New Worlds, and I even made a comment on Facebook about it. But anyway, this episode of Next Generation took place in San Francisco during a cholera epidemic, and some aliens had figured out a way to dimensionally travel back in time to Earth at that time, and took advantage of that epidemic in order to disguise their taking of human life for their own. It was a similar thing. They were taking people's life force. So I actually thought about that episode during this movie, because I think that's kind of it's kind of become a plot thing. I don't know how. I'm sure that had already been used at some point when this plot, when this movie came out. So I agree with that, and that's actually at least kind of a smart thing that the Dr. Rogers and the young gal who works there figured out. Something's wrong. How can this be happening like twice in a week or whatever? The plot did have a horror aspect. The doctor was creepy, and I'm with Brenda. Like, what on earth? Like, who would even go for this? Like, we've got to keep this guy alive. By the end of the movie, I was like, what are they doing? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But the plot moved along. I mean, it was, to quote another previous person who went before me, tight in that it did not do what a lot of movies do when they have kind of a simple plot, which is hem-haw around and, torture the audience with unnecessary scenes. I think it was pretty efficient as far as moving things along, and it was actually a little too short. The ending was too abrupt. I mean, it was more common back then to finish a movie and just have the end and not have any kind of anticlimax or wind down or anything, but This was just weird. The ending was like suddenly everything's on fire, and I guess the bad guys were thwarted. We don't really feel a sense of satisfaction about that. At least they finally realize, why are we like killing people so this guy can stay alive for another day? And it got to where he, it wasn't even working, and I guess it wears off or becomes ineffective after a while. I don't know. And to answer Brenda's question, they did answer that in the movie, that somehow young women of childbearing age were considered to be the only candidates for some reason. It had to do with their, fertility or something. I don't know, hormones or whatever. But anyway, so yeah, the ending was just kind of like, oh, okay. And then they're all like, okay, girls, go back to your dormitory. And I'm like, if I were those girls, I'd be like, I don't want to be here anymore. But anyway, there was some good horror twists and definitely some expected horror things, big scary, thug guys, sort of creeping around, grabbing girls and them screaming. And for some reason they suddenly, go limp and can't defend themselves. I don't know about that, but the good guys were likable. You wanted them to win. The bad guys were bad. You weren't sure why they had gotten away with it after all this time, but at least the good guys figured it out and thwarted them. And the characters, all the girls who were maybe a little more coiffed than they ought to have been. But back then in the 50s, people did expect, they were expected to dress a certain way and look a certain way, even in a place like that. So I guess that's the explanation for that. But this movie was thankfully and the plot was fairly simple. You could follow it. It had a beginning, middle, and end. The end was abrupt. It could have done with another 5 or 10 minutes of just wind down or explanation or something satisfying, but overall, not different.
All right, thank you, Virginia. See, now everybody has something to say, and you've covered it all, everybody. I won't have a lot to say, but first, let's talk to Bill, W5BLT. Bill, your thoughts on the film? Everybody kind of didn't hate it. What were your thoughts from KE5ICX?
Well, first, I'm glad to be back and awake. I was sick for a couple of weeks, and so while I watched the movie, just didn't make it onto the net here. So, compared to the last couple of weeks, this one was refreshing. I loved it so much, I'm going to watch it again. Maybe I'll watch it 3 times, because it's short enough that... but no, I think it was a simple plot. We've kind of seen this plot done in different ways. I was a little confused. I thought that they were also trying to drain the life force from these people to help themselves as well, these other 6 or however many people there were with trying to keep that other guy alive. So I was confused by that because I thought they had something that kept them alive as well. So I need to go back and rewatch that because I was a little confused. And then so now I understand the ending because it was kind of abrupt. I was like, what happened? Anyway, so that helps me fill in the gaps. And as far as them shooting things in the dark, I can obviously relate to that because it's so relatable for me watching some of these movies and not knowing what's going on. But being blind. But one of these things I really like about the old movies, whether I think it was a great plot or not, I can sit back and enjoy it, and because there's dialogue. And I'm gonna let this drop for a second. So whether or not the special effects or anything like that is good, there's enough dialogue that it keeps me interested in, and whereas if there's a lot of things going on visually in the movie, and not enough dialogue to explain what's happening in the movie, I get bored very quickly. So this one didn't, and it's probably why I do like the older movies, because there's just enough dialogue that it keeps me enough so that I know what's going on. And I don't need necessarily descriptive video service for it. I can follow it. And so I was able to pretty much follow this movie, and that was kind of refreshing after some of them that we've had. So that's all I have. Good to be back on the net with y'all and get the description of the movie. W5BLT.
Well, thank you, Bill, and welcome back. We're glad you're here. Yes, we did miss you, and now you're back. In fact, several people are back, so maybe this film wasn't terrible, and people were lured back because it was better than many, but not most. Okay, let's see here. I'll take additional check-ins if you'd like to join us this evening. Tonight's movie we are discussing is The Man Who Turned to Stone. You don't have to have seen the film. In fact, it may be beneficial if you didn't, but we'd like it if you checked in. If you're out there and would like to join us, please come with your call sign, name, and did you see The Man Who Turned to Stone from 1957. Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and make my 2 cents comments. Everybody had a lot of really good comments about the film, or really bad comments, depending on how you look at it, or really good bad comments. How's that? Nothing much to add to it. Overall, I thought it was very unusual that, of course, they did finally send somebody to find out what was going on. Perhaps there was an issue with people dying all the time at that wonderful institution with some of the oldest girls I've ever seen. And they called them girls, although they called them women too in the thing, and they're wandering around and everything. But I don't know. It took a while for them to actually get going with their whole investigation. There was a lot of talking, mainly because they didn't have a lot of money to actually develop any sort of a plot, except to burn the sets at the very end, which is probably a good idea. Probably could have done the script at the same time, so they could never be reproduced again, or come back as a reboot, which we all know would probably be a horrible, horrible thing. And it would actually be even more horrible than the first time. So it lives up to the horror genre, as you might expect. Let's see. I don't know what movie they were watching. That would have been interesting. We missed the movie that the girls, I'll put that in air quotes, the girls were watching. We don't know what it was, or maybe we do, I don't know. I was actually watching the ball game last night, and I had the audio down so I could watch the game, opposite of what I did tonight. But in any case, I don't know what else to say there on that one, so I didn't quite get the nuances at the first half of the movie because I was watching the ball game. Let me think for a sec. Oh, I hope everybody noticed that they were all wearing old clothes. That was kind of unusual, you know. The old doctors and that, they had the kind of turn of the century jackets and ascots and the weird button-up collar thing going on and all that. You would think these people would, you know, maybe buy new clothes. I mean, they should be worn out. But maybe they just buy clothes every 75 years or something because they'll last a long time. They're very thrifty. I'll agree with that. But I don't know. And then everybody was kind of boring. How could they live together for so long and be so boring? Have parties or something, do something interesting. So go into town every once in a while and live it up. I haven't had this much fun since 1899, you know, or something along those lines. That would have been cool. Or some reminiscing about that time when they were together, you know, doing whatever it is. Like the Jerome Bixby story we watched a few years back, and the sequel. I can't remember, The Man Who Saw Yesterday or something, whatever it was. The academic that was talking about all the fun things he did when he was still alive 150 years earlier, and back to the Romans and and all that. They could have done something like that, I suppose. Instead, they just talked about, what the solution in the hot tub should be. I mean, the transference thing. Oh, well. Okay. All right, here we go. We're going on to round 2. This time we get to talk about the characterization. So go look your characters up. We've got Dr. Murdoch, Mrs. Ford, Carol Adams, Dr. Rogers, Cooper, Big Marge, Tracy, Dr. Meyer, Eric as everybody. We love Eric as Frederick Luberber, and Dr. Freenel. So we'll start at the top.
Well, mostly I couldn't remember them. I think of them as the male protagonist. The female protagonist, she did have a neat kind of short haircut. I rather like that. I don't like the weird poofy 50s hair that, Where do these people even find time to do that? They're in like a reformatory and they have all this elaborately done hair. I liked her hair. I thought it was very practical. So with the male protagonist, the female protagonist, the big tall hench creature, and the other, the more polite doctors who were stealing the life force of the young woman more politely and less often. Mostly, they weren't terribly interesting. I did appreciate that they really didn't seem to depend on anybody being particularly, brilliant or amazing. They just kind of moved forward. I guess that made it more relatable. But it wasn't like I'm going to remember somebody and think, wow, that John Smith dude was really wonderful. One plot point I forgot to comment on, though, a particularly good reason to show this movie to children. Early in the movie, the male protagonist uses a pen light to look at things, but at some point he must lose it, or perhaps the batteries die, and he starts doing everything with matches, and the other characters do that too. And at some point, everything catches on fire. That, children, is why we use flashlights in severe thunderstorms or tornado warnings, and not matches, because we don't want to set everything on fire. So great safety lesson there, but I did not find the characters memorable at all. NT5TF.
So true. Thank you, Tony. Really appreciate that. You brought out a very good point. Perhaps you could do this on one of your Sunday nets and explain. I would call everybody kids too. But at any rate, next up, Alan, NG5Y. Alan, your thoughtful comments on characterization from KE5I6.
Well, one thing that struck me is this actor, I think the character name was Eric. He was able to carry these women all over the set, even upstairs, and didn't seem to ever be out of breath, and that kind of amazed me. The other deal, going back to the plot, where they were sucking the life out of these women, actually one of the Star Trek movies did something almost identical to that, where the villain was marauding ships that happened to be in the area of his planet and was sucking the life out of them to extend his life. So that's that. Don't have anything further. I'm sorry I'm so short. NG5Y back to net.
Okay, Alan. Well, I was trying to remember which Star Trek. Oh, movie. Maybe that Insurrection or something. I don't know. There was one that I've only seen like once, and that's very hard for a Star Trek fan to say, but there was the last one was pretty terrible. Nemesis with maybe that was it. I don't know. Okay, next is Bill. Bill, your favorite character from The Man Who Turned to Stone from 1957.
This is Inside BB. My favorite character? Oh, you're putting me on the spot. I was going to talk about characterization. Let me talk about characterization, and maybe I can think of a favorite character along the way. By the way, I'd like to correct what I think was a misunderstanding by some of the people that watched it, including me early on. I also thought that only that first person that got reanimated was the only, Eric or whatever his name was the only person there that was had lived, such a long time. But if you were listening, Tom, if you had the volume turned up, Tom, while he was reading the diary, the protagonist was reading a diary, you discover that all of them had lived back in the late 1700s, and so all of them were getting reanimated. It's just that one of them, was it Eric? I get it mixed up. Things had gone bad early on, and he was burning out. So that's why you saw him keep having to get reanimated and everything. The rest of them would eventually have to get reanimated also. So that is why they were willing to kill other people, because they could stay alive for all this length of time by transferring the souls from other bodies, or the energy, the animal magnetism energy. And the reason they wanted young women was also mentioned in the diary. It was because they had young women of childbearing age had more life force or something like that, supposedly. So, and they were trying to figure out, or one of them, was it Eric? I mix up some of the guys. Was trying to figure out what the secret was with the frequencies of the bioelectric energy or something, long term, so they wouldn't have to steal the life force of other humans. Anyway, now, getting back to the characterization, I'm not looking at the list. Dr. whatever his name is, the guy that was kind of the director in charge of the Institute, Monroe, or whatever his name was, he was obviously it seemed to be the most evil of the evil, because he was directing all this and keeping it going and everything, although the rest of them were just about as evil. And let's see, I think they were played, all of them, as very cold, all the people there at the Institute that were in charge, as very cold people that only cared about their own, life. And they were going to do anything to extend it. So it's like, what if you were on your deathbed and you could push a button and somebody else would die and you would then live longer? Would you ethically, would you do it? One of those things, I mean, they would. I don't know if I would. Obviously, I think the characters that were the most favorable were the protagonist guy, whose name I'm not looking at because I'm not looking at a list and I didn't take notes, but the doctor that came in to rescue them, essentially, and then the woman who he befriended, that they were getting pretty lovey-dovey there at the end. So they were, of course, the main protagonists that lived through the whole thing, that kept it going, that seemed to be most likable. Although some of the other people were very likable, like a girl that died first and then her friend that died later. And as the reason that they set it in such a location, inside BB, was, of course, they had all these young women, and they had some way of controlling them. So that's the reason I'm sure it was plotted that way. And somehow that little cabal of people figured out how to get control over that institution. I don't know exactly how they did that. That wasn't really explained to my knowledge. But they somehow got control over it. That's all I got, Inside BB.
Thank you, Bill. And yes, I did hear that. It was also in the subtitles. I ran the subtitles too, so you know, I got the whole thing on the. Was it the diary, the thing? I got that. Okay. Next up is Jay, KG5BZW. Jay, your thoughts on characterization?
This is KG5BCW. The girls, they try to dress up the women as far as characters being characters. Some some aspects were the women were chosen for. They had other assets as well, but I thought the women were okay. They were okay. It was a little bit hard to keep track of the women. I mean, they were all in their supposed prison outfits or whatever. But I don't know. Maybe it's just one of those things. Hard for me. It might be hard for me to keep track of people without color in clothes and whatnot, because I'm so used to that in more modern cinema. But not that it mattered, because you know, you got introduced to a woman, then turns out she was next on the list to get livestock. And the vampire Dorian, whatever you want. They don't really give a name to the people that are actually doing as a mocker, as a name for them that are still in the life force. They were awfully dull. You just kind of wonder what kind of life they were really living. That why would they want to continue living the way they were living as they were portrayed? Because they just seemed not to. They just like, we're living until we get our next livestock or something. Which maybe, I don't know. There's a moral aspect to that as well. You need to read it however you want. I did like the psychiatrist, psychologist. I'm not sure what. And the governor's daughter. I did like the pair. I thought several of the women were interesting characters. I just cannot remember who did what, and it was like, that's the only thing. It's just they were so hard to keep track in my head. I don't know what. And Eric, the big tall guy that the Frankenstein equivalent. He did his part okay, but there's a lot you can read into this film as far as memes go. I'm almost tempted to watch this film again just because, it's like, what exactly did they steal from for this scene and this scene? And I bet you could make have some fun making a list for that. Anyway, I'm getting off topic of characters, and I don't think you got anything else for now. So this is back to that. KG587.
All right, thank you, Jay. Next is Brenda, WB50ZL. Brenda, your favorite character. I know you have at least one, maybe two or three, from KE5IC.
This is WB50ZL. Favorite character? What movie was this? Well, obviously it would be Eric. He was so engaging and so charming and delightful, and so worth murdering people to save him. I'm just really glad that doesn't happen much in the real world. That people aren't ready to snatch you and kill you for no good reason. I'll say the characters were pretty well cast. They were believable in their food and cool and such. It's not just like, you know, they were kind of stereotyped. So I don't really have a lot of strong opinions on this, and so I don't have a whole lot to say. So I think I'll just go ahead and leave it there. WB50ZL.
Oh, man. All right. Next up is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, I know you've got a favorite character in all this. Please, go ahead. KE5ICX.
I don't know if I have a favorite. We like the good guys because they're good. We're against the bad guys because they're, for some reason, needlessly doing what they're doing. I guess they just got in the habit during 100 years ago when they made this amazing discovery, and they just kept justifying what they were doing over the years and became numb to the fact that they were taking lives for what they considered to be science about, anti-aging. They even made that point in the diary they talk about. And that's something that is still kind of baffling. The human body completely replaces every cell in itself in a 7-year period, and there's still a lot of conjecture as to why people age. So that was kind of interesting, and maybe that's what it's sort of a testament to. What if we did have that kind of longevity? Their longevity was for the sake of longevity. In order to discover the secret of longevity, they kept continuing their own longevity, and they, I guess, like I said, their ethics changed over the century and a half that they were doing that, and maybe that's why they were all so boring. It makes you wonder, like, what if we could live for 150 years? Would we just run out of things to do and things to care about? And, if all we cared about was not dying, would that be kind of boring? And that's even kind of in Star Trek episodes or movies about, the future where people live for a long, long time. And whenever we sort of cast those societies in our, in our fiction, they always seem kind of floaty and sort of dull, So maybe that's why these people were so dull. Maybe they had lost all semblance of character because they were just simply living for the sake of being alive and had completely lost their sense of morality and ethics as well, and maybe that's why they felt justified in doing something that seems absolutely retarded, So that's kind of, I guess that's kind of a character thing. A lot of the characters were stereotypes. There were none that really stood out as far as being interesting enough to really go, oh, that's my favorite character. The matron was a stereotypical sort of battle axe, and the female doctor was the weird, cold-hearted, calculating, kind of scientific type, and, librarian/scientist, and the big Eric dude was like, Lurch on steroids, and, just kind of the big, that was a typical oafish horror movie thing, the big silent guy who just comes in and grabs women, and I guess they suddenly get paralyzed and can't defend themselves, and all they can do is scream and then faint. Just lots of things you just kind of want to have in a horror movie, characters that you sort of want to have, the young, beautiful couple that come together in order to save everybody and, figure out that they're in love with each other, and that their love helps them win the day, and, they're thwarted at every turn, and they somehow keep going, and I guess I'll go with Dr. Rogers. He was my favorite because he was the ultimate guy who, helped the lady psychologist who figured out what was going on. And, some of the gals in the detention home were pretty plucky and likable. And, I think that's what kept me watching, kept all of us watching. We at least cared a little bit, and that's what keeps you watching, is that you kind of care about the people. You don't want these people to die needlessly. You want to figure out what's wrong and save the rest of them. So, anyway, that'll be it for me, NV5F.
What if that's what they want?
Well, he does make a good point. Oh, well. Let's see, Bill, W5BLT. Bill, your thoughts. Were the characters plucky and watchable from KE5ICX?
Yeah, I think so. I think Roger, obviously, and the lady that was the governor's daughter that was trying to help solve this issue and uncover what was going on. It's just kind of I guess a campy kind of movie. The characters kind of reminded me of, I'm trying to think of the show that I watched in college, just the way the characters were, kind of on those, like the USA or Network that had the Up All Night, kind of the just off-the-wall movies, and this seemed kind of like that. I don't know that they really went deep into the characters, but I don't think it was that type of film. It was probably, back then, again, I think we talked about this, or, you just didn't have, it was just something to go to the movies, and we didn't have Twitter or Facebook or anything for endless scrolling and, cat videos on YouTube. We didn't have that, so we went to watch stuff like this. And the characters, I thought there's nobody that I thought really did a bad job for what the movie was. And the only other thing I'll say on this, I think there was a Star Trek episode where the creature needed salt to survive and was killing humans for the salt. I was trying to remember when you guys were talking about the Star Trek, that one came to mind. Anyway, that's all I got, W5BLT.
Ah, yes, The Man Trap. That was the name of the episode. Yeah, with Plum. Dr. McCoy. Okay, let's see here. We're at the bottom of the list. Does anybody else want to check in before I give my comments? Which will be very short. Anyone? Anyone at all who hasn't checked in? Okay, well, everybody made their comments. Look, I'm getting a little tired. This is my, third net tonight? So we just keep going and going and going. Let's see, my favorite was Eric. Frederick, as Eric. I thought he was good. He was nice. He could capture people. He could entertain them. He could drop them off so that he can get redone. The only problem was he was high maintenance. And in the end, as everybody figured out, just let him die. Yeah, nobody cares. But you would think these people would come up with ways of gaming systems, creating their own, I don't know, Las Vegas or something, and turn it, maybe, I don't know, maybe invest a little bit of money, take a few dollars and with that. I mean, that's always my thing. Now, one of the thoughtful questions I always ask is when you talk about these things, accidents. If you live long enough, you're going to do stupid things. You're going to hurt yourself. Now, is this regeneration thing? Does this work really well, or does it have to happen all the time? I mean, Eric had to go and get it done a couple of times to the point where everybody's going, oh, geez, Eric needs another pick-me-up yet again. What are we going to do? Oh, yeah, we're going to go find somebody and capture him, put him in the hot tub, and then run him through the electrical zapper machine and bring him back. And by afternoon, he's back in there, and he needs it again. He's very high maintenance. Nobody wants to be an Eric. Eric is just too much. So, I don't know. And would that have happened to everybody else? They're all about the same age, right? Nobody seemed real concerned about that. Not very smart. How come they don't get smarter? They should have been getting smarter. I mean, they got all this stuff going on. They've lived for hundreds of years. They know everybody's plot. Everything is going on, and the only thing they can come up with is, help me with paperwork at the very end, as Tony said. Dumb people, very dumb people. Okay, that's it from me on that one. Okay, this is the final round. We got time. This one is what you think, special effects, music, anything you want, or if something you missed along the way, or you want to tell somebody they were wrong, now's the time. We'll start with Tony, NT5TM. Tony, your final comments. Uh-oh, Tony may have gone to bed. I'm not sure. Okay, let me run over to NG5Y. Alan, your final comments.
Well, I did think the movie ended rather abruptly, and like you said, they probably burned the sets to make sure that no sequel was ever made. Don't really have a lot more to add. I did enjoy it, and I hope Brenda picks some more movies in the future. Back to Ned, NG51.
Yeah, she's pretty good about picking the really good ones. Okay, next up is Bill. N5EV, Bill, your final comments, special effects, whatever you want.
Special effects? This is N5BB. The only special effects I can imagine are the makeup on the people's around their eyes that looked like they were getting ready to croak. And actually, it was done in a very cheap way. And the reason I say that is what I would think what would really have happened is this would be a slow change over a period of at least minutes or hours. But we saw it seemed to change nearly immediately within, 15 or 30 seconds, which doesn't really sound realistic, although, of course, this is all fictional, fake science and everything. The machinery for this transfer of life energy was pretty basic. Just some things they threw together with a tank for them to put somebody in. And a few wires hanging over it and some other things, lights turned on. Nothing very fancy. There were no big arcs in the air, and the lights didn't dim when they ran it, and they did have backup power. They didn't explain how that worked. They must have had batteries or something. I didn't hear a generator running. But that's all I can think of. As I think Tom mentioned, the matches became special effects because I guess the guy's battery in his flashlight ran out or something because he started using matches. That became a special effect, as well as the rock hard surface of the creature, the people when they were getting ready to die. But we just kind of inferred that. We didn't prove that their surface was rock hard. You didn't actually see the scissors banging on his skin. You saw him doing it, and then you saw his skin. That was cheap. They could have at least tried to do a little bit of special effects there to show the scissors banging down against his skin. Anyway, that is all that I've got. That's all she wrote in 5BB.
Okay, Bill, good points. I don't disagree. Let's see. Next up is Jay, KG5BZWJ. Your final comment. The round is special effects, but it can be anything you want.
BZW. I should have done this before this net, but because that special effects reminded me of something that was advertised in one of my social media feeds. I think it was an older film. Or it seems like they used a similar effect. And I try to remember if it was that they had the actors painted, and they just filmed through the filter and they removed it so that the paint actually would show through, or if it was the other way around. Granted, this might be something where just getting tired and not thinking straight, but there wasn't much special effects. Although the origin of that type of special effect seems kind of interesting to me, even though I can't really seem to remember what film originated that. Did they change with the changing of the filter or whatnot? And how did they do all of that without too much effort? Because it did seem you could tell a difference between when it was swapped, but it wasn't that bad, so it seemed decent for whatever effect that really was. The only other thing I can think of besides matches, I think one guy had I am kind of curious what the electronics they used for the life sucking, the life transference, whatever. It had a little bit of the computer-esque, like a blinky light kind of thing that you had in some films and other things. More curious about it than anything. I don't know if that's a special effect or just set dressing that is kind of interesting. I don't know what else to talk about. There isn't really much, which is fine. I make a B-movie, so. Anyway, I'll get the next person. KG5BZW.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Brenda, WB50ZL. Brenda, wake up! Your final comments from KE5ICX.
is WB5OZL. Well, a common theme that we often hear on these is, well, it's not the worst movie we ever saw. And I'll say that about this. It's not the worst we ever saw. But it really wasn't very good. I mean, it wasn't bad so much in that you could understand what was going on and you could figure out the plot, but did I care about these people? Not much. Or identify with them? Not much. I'm truly horrified at a person would be just happy to murder people so that he could live. That's a real monster. Okay, I'm going to go. W5OZL.
Yeah, we're all getting tired. We're almost done. Virginia, NV5F, your final comment.
Okay, well, the music was okay. I remember thinking while I was watching it that it worked, and the overall cinematography, balance of contrast, which can often be a problem in black and white films, was okay. There were, toward the end with the fire, whenever there's anything in black and white with a fire, it's really hard to get that exposure right. It usually just ends up looking washed out. That's kind of the case here. The end of the movie just generally sucked. Overall, special effects, I guess it was mostly makeup and props and sound. I love how they used the stock, just buzzing electrical sound that's a standard in the labs of mad scientists across the world. Plausibility, not very much, but it was a horror movie. I found the girls in the detention home likable enough to root for. The good guys were likable enough to root for. No real memorable characters. This is not the kind of movie you're going to wake up the next morning thinking about wanting to see it again, or feeling enthralled or moved in any way. It was just like you said earlier. It was the second on a double bill. Just to get. And I mean, the one thing I'll say about it is that they took a real simple plot that had definitely a twist for the time, and they didn't try to pad out an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes with it. They let it run its course, and they were done. And probably done a little too soon, because I think it could have been the ending could have been finessed a little bit better. Maybe give it another 5 minutes to wind down, but that was common in movies back then. Okay, resolved. The end. So, anyway, those are going to be my parting shots on this one, and I will look forward to hearing what the last couple folks have to say in V5S.
Thank you, Virginia. And next up is Bill, W5BLT. Bill, last but not least. Well, I'll be last, and Dirk definitely least. But what your final comments? What do you got to tell us from KE5ICX?
Oh, the pressure's on now. I think I've covered everything. I don't really. The other thing, too, is as far as the music goes, I don't really remember anything about the music, if there really was any. And I don't think, based on what you guys are saying, there's not really any special effects. I mean, it was just, to me, it was just one of those movies you watch just to be kind of entertained. And you didn't have to think too much about it, or... and I could feel that way probably after a stressful work week, although I'm glad I'm, able to work and stuff, but, it was just nice to kind of veg out to something like this, so that's what I'll say for it. And, again, thank you everybody for the description. Also for Bill, thank you for confirming, because that's what I was thinking, is that there were these other doctors and they were trying to live and extend their lives as well. And so interesting that one of them seemed to be needing to rejuvenate a little more often, obviously. So that's all I got. W5BLT.
Short and sweet, no problem. Okay, does Tom have anything really to add? Nah. Music was okay, nothing really to report there. Special effects, if you like fires and burning the set down at the very end, great. Otherwise, you know, a couple of the scenes look like they came out of, like, what is it? The backlot over at Universal with the stone thing, which is the mid-century stone stuff, but no, we know that's not the case. I wonder where that was actually filmed. I probably should check to see, because they're trying to make the institution look like something, but I don't know. Could have been anything, I suppose. All right, how much to tell you beyond that? I'm not going to stretch it out. We are now just 4 minutes from the end of our net. So everybody sit down. Here it comes. Next week's movie. I'd never heard of it before, but it's available on YouTube. From 1965, it's called The Wizard of Mars. The Wizard of Mars with Frank Baum. No, I don't know why it says Frank Baum. Maybe, oh dear God, I just put it up. Oh, really? Hang on, let me look at this again. I don't know. It could be The Wizard of Oz in disguise. I'm not sure. There's a shaky cam. There's some spacesuits that look like they came from another movie, and everybody looks like a bullet head. There's some talking. There's that came out. Oh, maybe we've seen this one. Well, we can watch it again. It's that good. All right, everybody. We'll talk again. And I've not lost. The 2010 is not lost on me. We'll see about maybe watching it again. It's probably time. 7-3, everybody. Have a good rest of the week and a good Sunday. We'll do this again next Saturday. Oh, by the way, next Saturday I will be out of town. I will be down in Corpus, so I may need some folks to potentially do Skynet features while I'm out. I will try and check in. But I will send the notes out for all that stuff ahead of time. I should have mentioned it earlier, and I completely forgot about it. So, everybody, have a good evening, and you can go watch another episode of Twilight Zone. They're still running their marathon here on MeTV if you're so inclined. I may just go to bed. I got to get up early, as always. See y'all. This is KE5ICX. I'm now clear.
Sorry I missed my spot, but thank you very much for being here and staying up. NT5TF.
And before everybody leaves...
FSWS.
Before everybody leaves, this is N5BB. If you're heavily caffeinated and been snacking on things, like I've been snacking on grapes, and you're not quite ready to go to sleep, I recommend the PBS show Astrid. It's a crime series set in Europe, which is getting ready to start in just a couple of minutes. This week's episode is called Astrid, A-S-T-R-I-D, and the main protagonist, there's two of them, but the one that's most interesting has Asperger's syndrome, and she is able to solve crimes because she has a very good memory, and she really cares about connections between things. I find it very interesting. Reminds me of Professor T. These are all series that came from France and Belgium, and they're really cool. Anyway, Astrid, A-S-T-R-I-D, starting right now on PBS, Channel 13. N5BB clear.
Oh, thank you, Bill. Maybe I'll tune that one in. I've seen Twilight Zone 2 or 3 million times. Okay. I heard Andrew out there. Andrew, are you done working tonight from KE5ICX?
Yep, just locked up the museum and headed home. It was actually a really fun wedding tonight, so that was a lot of fun. KE5SWS.
Elvis has left the building.
Are you going to be at the museum tomorrow, bright and early?
No, I'm going to definitely be sleeping in tomorrow. I might get there about 11:30, give or take a few.
Ah, good boy. I don't know. I haven't decided if I'm going in or not. I can't be there. I got to play hooky next week. Next Saturday I'll be out of town. So, but I also got to decide. I didn't get out and do my morning run today. So tomorrow is the evil day. That's the one with the what's called the sun loop, with the super dyed-in-the-wool types that go. Their mileage starts at 12 miles on Sundays, and mine should too. But we'll see. I haven't decided yet. It's kind of nice not being in pain this afternoon when I normally am when I do the things. But I gotta get this done, man. It's getting close to Dallas Marathon.
Well, I'm kind of glad you're on the mend, though, because you were in quite a bit of pain there for a little while.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the way it is. There's no way to do this stuff and get around it. But, oh well, keeps me healthy.
Well, if I don't see you tomorrow, Dad ended up passing away last Saturday, so we finally just pulled the plug, and I was like, Mom, there's literally nothing else we can do for Dad. So we just let him pass gracefully and peacefully, and so been dealing with funeral stuff and celebrations of life things, and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I understand. My condolences to you. I went through this just a couple of months ago with my mother, and then a year before that with my dad. So I know what that's like, and I know that he was ill for quite a while, but it doesn't lessen the blow any. So I'm sorry to hear that, and I hope you come through it okay. We can talk about it anytime you want to.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's more than anything, I think it's just a relief. Like, he's not in pain anymore. Like, we don't have to deal with so many doctors anymore. So it was a big stress on a lot of people. But I'm kind of glad, though, it just went peacefully. Everything went really well. So that made it really easy.
Well, that's good. I don't know if, you go through these things and you try and think the best, but the suffering and things, and you think about yourself and how you'll go at some point as well, and you want things to go as swiftly, smoothly, and as calmly as it can. Inevitably it's going to happen to everybody, unfortunately, but you don't want to suffer, and you don't want others to suffer. It's just not right. Try and do the best you can and help them as much as you can. All right, I'm going to let you go. I'm sure you're driving, and I'll probably see you tomorrow. Have a good one. Andrew, I'll talk to you later. KC5SWS from KE5ICX.
Hey, sir, sorry, I had a phone call that just come in from one of those wedding planners tonight. We'll say 73s, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. KC5SWS.